I wasn't supposed to see it. But once I did, there was no going back. It was a Tuesday, one of those heavy, breathless summer afternoons where the sun seems to press down on your skin, slow everything down, make even air feel thick. I was sitting at my desk in the back office of the architecture firm, half distracted, flipping between spreadsheets and half-hearted designs, when my phone buzzed. It was her, Emily. We'd known each other for 3 years. She worked in the marketing department, quick-witted, sharp-tongued, with a laugh that had this breathy little catch at the end that I'd catch myself thinking about when I shouldn't. We had a kind of low-key flirtation, the kind that exists under the surface, just outside the lines of professionalism. Side glances in meetings, brushing past each other in tight hallways, shared jokes that no one else understood. But it had never been anything more. She was dating someone. So was I? And yet, the message was short. Oops, ignore that last one. It was sitting there, just above her text, in full color. No caption, just the photo. She was in her bedroom, sitting on the edge of her bed. Bare shoulders. That silky, wine-colored strap sliding off one arm. Lips slightly parted, like she'd been about to say something and forgot what it was. Her eyes were soft, almost dreamy, but there was heat behind them. Hunger. That look women give when they're thinking about being touched. I stared at it longer than I should have. My pulse kicked in, slow and heavy. The room got quieter somehow. I could hear the hum of the AC, the tick of the wall clock, and somewhere in the back of my head, my own voice trying to cut through the fog. She didn't mean to send this to you. But it was too late. My imagination had already lit the match. I tapped the photo open again. There was something about the way her hand gripped the sheets beside her, like she was trying to stay still, trying not to move. Her skin looked flushed. There was light falling through the window in strips, breaking across her thighs, and my chest tightened with something deeper than just lust. I didn't reply for a while. Couldn't. Every word I typed felt wrong. Too casual. Too serious. Too obvious. Finally, I wrote, "You sure you want me to ignore it?" 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then came back. I waited. My mouth was dry. My hands felt warm, almost shaky. The air felt different now, like something had been opened that shouldn't have been. Then she wrote, "No, I don't." That's when everything changed. The moment she said no, I don't, something shifted inside me. Like a door I'd been pretending wasn't there had creaked open, just enough to let a draft slip through. Cool, charged, full of possibility. I sat there, phone still in my hand, staring at those 4 words like they were a riddle I'd been waiting to solve. The silence between us stretched longer than it should have, but I didn't want to rush it. I wanted to feel it, the weight of her confession, the quiet echo of permission. I finally typed back, "Then tell me what it meant." It took her a minute. I imagined her pacing, biting her lip, thumb hovering over her screen. When the reply came, it was a voice note, breathy, hesitant, less confident than I expected. I was thinking about what it would feel like if it was you. Pause. I didn't mean to send it, but I didn't stop myself either. My heart wasn't just pounding, it was aching. That slow, relentless pull you feel when you want something you know you shouldn't. She wanted me. Or maybe she'd always wanted me. And now, the illusion of restraint we'd both been clinging to had finally slipped. I replied, "I've thought about you too." There it was. Naked honesty. No cleverness. No safe joke to hide behind. And it felt terrifying. She answered almost instantly this time. "I know. I've seen it in your eyes." And suddenly, I was there, in that space between us, in the glances that had lingered too long, the way our arms had brushed when we passed too close, the tension in the half-smiles we shared at the edge of company parties. It had never been just friendship. We'd both just been pretending. The next day at work, everything felt louder. Her heels on the tile floor. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear at the break room sink. I watched her from across the office, and for the first time, she didn't look away. At lunch, she passed me a note folded like we were in high school. I opened it beneath the table. "Meet me after hours. Conference room B, 6:45. Alone." She signed it with a tiny lipstick kiss. Not drawn. Real. I could still see the curve of her bottom lip. All afternoon, time dragged like wet fabric. I couldn't focus. Every sound felt sharper. Every second stretched. My body was already anticipating hers. How close we'd stand. What might happen if no one stopped us. At 6:45, I opened the door, and she was already there, leaning against the table, wearing that same color as the photo, deep wine red, like something ripe. Her eyes met mine. "I couldn't stop thinking about last night," she whispered. "Neither could I. But this was real." And as I closed the door behind me, I knew there was no pretending anymore. The door clicked shut behind me, and the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was electric. Emily didn't move. She just watched me, her fingers trailing along the edge of the conference table like she was trying to ground herself, like the touch of wood could keep her steady against whatever was building between us. The blinds were half closed. The fluorescent lights overhead cast soft shadows across her collarbone, her shoulders, bare again, like the photo, only now I could feel the heat coming off her skin from across the room. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Every thought I'd had about her, every glance I'd stolen, every moment we'd let pass without touching. It was all here now, standing in the space between us. "I thought maybe you wouldn't come," she said, voice low, eyes flickering toward the window. I almost didn't. "Why?" "Because I'm not sure I'll be able to stop." She swallowed. I saw the muscles in her throat tighten. "Then don't." Those two words undid me. I moved toward her slowly, watching the way her breath changed, how it caught halfway in, how her lips parted just slightly, like she was tasting the moment before it arrived. When I reached her, I didn't touch her. Not yet. I stood close enough to feel the warmth of her body, close enough to see the fine rise of goosebumps on her skin. She tilted her head up, barely, and whispered, "You're just going to stand there and look at me?" "I've been looking at you for 3 years." The silence between us pulsed, not empty, but full of everything we'd never said. I could feel the tension winding tighter, breath to breath. And then her hand lifted, slow and uncertain, brushing the front of my shirt like she wasn't sure if this was still fantasy. When her fingers curled against the fabric, everything inside me clenched. Not from the touch itself, but from the restraint it took not to move, not to pull her in, not to crash into everything we'd been holding back. "Tell me what you want," I murmured. She looked up at me with eyes that weren't shy anymore. "I want to feel what you've been hiding from me," she said. "I want to stop pretending." That was it. The thread snapped. I reached for her, and in that instant, nothing mattered. Not the company policies, not the people 2 floors below, not the consequences waiting outside that room. Only the way her breath hitched when my fingers traced her jaw. Only the way her hands gripped the back of my neck like she'd been waiting to fall into this for years. Our lips met, not in a rush, but like we were remembering something from a dream. Slow, deep, trembling with all the things we'd never said out loud. And when we finally pulled apart, her forehead resting against mine, she whispered, "This wasn't a mistake, was it?" "No," I said. "It was inevitable." That night didn't end in the conference room. Not really. The physical space was behind us, but the sensation lingered. In the way her perfume clung to the collar of my shirt, in the phantom memory of her hands sliding across my chest, in the weight of the unspoken words still pressing against my ribs. We hadn't gone further, not all the way, but what we did, it was enough to crack something open inside me. When I got home, I stood in the hallway of my apartment, lights off, just breathing. Everything outside felt too bright, too loud, like I'd just stepped off a cliff and was still waiting to hit the ground. I didn't know how to go back to normal. I didn't want to. A message lit up my phone. "Emily, are you okay?" I stared at it. Such a simple question. Such a loaded one. "Me. I can still taste you." 3 dots. Then nothing. Then more dots. Then her reply. "Come over." I didn't hesitate. By the time I reached her apartment, it was almost midnight. The building was quiet, suburban, safe, the kind of place people lived when they were playing house. But tonight, it felt charged. Dangerous, even. She opened the door before I knocked. Her hair was still damp from the shower, skin glowing, lips soft. She was wearing something loose, cotton, maybe, or silk. I couldn't tell. My eyes weren't focusing on details. Just her. Neither of us spoke. We didn't have to. She stepped back, letting me in. The moment I passed her, the door clicked shut behind me. Again, and again, it was the sound of permission. I walked through her living room, quiet, dimly lit. Candles flickered near the window, casting moving shadows across the floor. I felt her behind me, not touching, just there, her presence like heat against my back. And then she said, almost a whisper, "I thought about stopping this." I turned. She was watching me, arms wrapped loosely across her waist, eyes unreadable. I thought about pretending it didn't happen, she continued. Telling you I got carried away. Saying we should forget it. I waited. But I realized, she said, voice tightening, I don't want to forget. I walked toward her, slow. And I don't want to be good anymore. The confession struck me like a match to dry leaves. I reached out, brushing a strand of damp hair from her face. My knuckles skimmed her cheek, and she leaned into it like touch had suddenly become a language neither of us had spoken in years. Then don't be, I said. Her breath caught. She stepped closer, her hands sliding beneath my shirt, palms warm against my skin. Her touch wasn't urgent, it was curious, like she was exploring something she already knew but needed to relearn from memory. And when she whispered, "You don't know how long I've wanted this," I felt it in my bones. She guided me toward the couch, slowly, deliberately, and we sank into the cushions like gravity had been waiting to pull us there all along. But just as our mouths met again, just as her hands tightened around my shoulders and mine traced the curve of her back, there was a knock at the door. The knock echoed like a slap across water, sharp, sudden, impossible to ignore. Emily froze. Her breath caught in her throat, and her body, which had just been melting into mine, turned to stone. I felt her hands stiffen against my chest, her lips hover close, then pull away, like the moment itself had shattered mid-breath. I whispered, "Are you expecting someone?" She shook her head, barely, her eyes wide in the candlelight. "No one. Not this late." A second knock, firmer this time. She looked at me, and for a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not fear exactly, but guilt. Like the past had just shown up on her doorstep, wearing shoes we both recognized. She stood, smoothing her shirt, running a shaky hand through her hair. "Stay here," she whispered. Her voice was low, urgent. "Don't say anything." I sat motionless as she walked barefoot across the room, her steps too light for how heavy the moment had become. She opened the door a crack. A male voice cut through the space. Muffled. Familiar. "Em, are you home? Your car's outside. I was in the area." My stomach turned. Jason. Her boyfriend. I didn't know much about him. We'd met in passing at one of the company picnics. Clean cut. Confident. The kind of man who didn't question whether he was wanted. And yet, here he was, showing up unannounced like some part of him had felt the shift in the air between her and me. Emily's voice was strained, casual. "Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I was about to sleep." I couldn't hear his response. Only the soft rustle of movement. The squeak of shoes on her floor. My pulse thundered in my ears. She was letting him in. I stood slowly, silently, every sense on high alert. I could smell her perfume still clinging to my collar, feel the heat of her touch still radiating from my skin. Panic mixed with desire in a way that made my stomach tighten. Voices moved closer. Then a pause. Then her voice. Louder, clearer. "I'm really tired, babe. Can we talk tomorrow?" Another pause. Silence stretched too long. Then the front door opened again. Closed. Locked. And a minute later, she returned, breathless, eyes wide, heart clearly racing behind her ribs. "I told him I had a headache," she said, her voice shaky, almost a laugh. "He never just shows up." I stared at her, disoriented by the whiplash. Does he know? No. But he felt something. I saw it in his eyes. I took a breath, trying to ground myself. "Do you want to stop?" She looked at me then, really looked. And the answer was written in every inch of her. "No," she said. "That was the most alive I've felt in years. I don't care what it means right now. I just need to feel this." She stepped forward again, slower this time. Not rushing, not escaping, just moving towards something she'd finally admitted to needing. And as she wrapped her arms around me, nestling her forehead into my shoulder, I realized something I hadn't admitted either. This wasn't about lust anymore. It was about something deeper, something dangerous, because I wasn't sure if I was falling for her, or if I already had. The next few days felt unreal, like I was drifting just outside the frame of my own life. We went back to work like nothing had happened, smiled through meetings, made small talk over coffee. But underneath it all, everything had changed. The current running between us wasn't just electric now, it was magnetic. Every time we were in the same room, I felt it tug at me, pulling me toward her. And she felt it too. I could tell. She wouldn't even have to look at me. Sometimes it was the way she'd tuck her hair behind her ear, slowly, as if aware I was watching. Or the way her laugh would shift, softer, warmer, when I was near. We didn't need words anymore. We were speaking in the space between them. But secrets don't stay quiet forever. The day everything twisted started like any other. We were working late, again, under the pretense of finishing the quarterly brief. Everyone else had cleared out, leaving the office hushed and glowing under the dimmed lights. The air smelled faintly of old paper and the citrus cleaner the janitors used, but all I could focus on was her. She stood by the whiteboard, one hand on her hip, outlining a pitch I wasn't even pretending to listen to. Her blouse was too sheer for this much proximity. Her lipstick, a shade darker than usual. Her voice, low and slow like honey, like she knew exactly what she was doing. When she turned to look at me, I was already at the edge of my self-control. "You're not paying attention," she teased, stepping closer. "I am," I lied. "To me or to the words?" I tilted my head. "There's a difference?" She laughed softly, that same breathy catch at the end that always undid me. She crossed the room, slow, deliberate, and placed both hands on the edge of my desk, leaning down just enough that I could smell her, jasmine and something faintly woody, like rain on warm skin. And then, out of nowhere, she said it. "Have you ever thought about what this would be like if we weren't alone?" The question hit me like a wave of cold water. I blinked. "What do you mean?" Her gaze didn't waver. "I mean, have you ever imagined someone else being part of this?" It wasn't jealousy in her voice. It wasn't shame. It was curiosity. Playful. Dark. I swallowed. My throat was suddenly dry. "Emily," she smiled, slow and knowing, like she'd cracked open something I hadn't admitted even to myself. "I've seen the way you look at her," she whispered. I froze. "Her who?" Her eyes sparkled. "Nina, your project manager." I didn't answer. "You've wondered," she said, stepping around behind my chair, her fingers brushing my shoulders, "what it would feel like. Watching. Being watched. Sharing something that's supposed to be secret." The room tilted. Everything in me twisted. Guilt. Want. Confusion. "I don't know what you're trying to do," I murmured, my voice low, rougher than I meant. "Yes, you do." She leaned down, her lips brushing the curve of my ear. "We've already crossed the line," she whispered. "Why not see how far it goes?" And just like that, the world I thought I understood shifted again. Darker, deeper, more dangerous. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, Emily, whispering behind my ear, her voice still circling inside me like smoke. Why not see how far it goes? That question hadn't left me since. She'd cracked something open, something I wasn't ready to admit even to myself. Because the truth was, she was right. I had thought about it. About Nina. About what it might feel like to be seen in that moment. To share something intimate, raw, forbidden. But fantasy is one thing. Reality is another. And yet, 3 days later, Emily pushed the boundary even further. It was a Friday. Office drinks. The whole team gathered at a rooftop bar downtown. Sunset casting gold across high rises. Glasses clinking. Laughter carrying through warm air. Emily sat beside me, legs crossed, smile easy. But beneath the table, her hand rested lightly on my thigh, hidden from view. Her thumb moved in slow, hypnotic circles. And across from us sat Nina. Unaware. Or maybe not. Nina was sharp, confident, funny in that effortless way that made you want to impress her. She laughed at my jokes that night, more than usual. Her eyes lingered. Once, when Emily reached across to hand me a drink, Nina's gaze dropped, not to the glass, but to the way Emily's fingers brushed mine. The atmosphere changed. It was subtle, like the air pressure dropping before a storm. At one point, Emily leaned in and whispered, "She knows something." I looked at her. "She's curious," she added, a wicked little smile on her lips. "Can't you feel it?" I didn't answer. I couldn't, because I had felt it. And worse, part of me wanted to see where it led. Later, when most of the team had left, the three of us stayed behind, sitting closer, sharing stories, letting the conversation dip into the kind of personal waters that always feel a little too warm, a little too risky. At one point, Nina said, "I always know when people are hiding something. You two have a vibe." Emily didn't flinch. She just smiled. "Maybe we're just good at secrets." That sentence hung in the air too long. We parted ways not long after. Nina kissed me on the cheek, a little too slow, and gave Emily a look I couldn't read. Curious. Calculated. Intrigued. As we walked to the parking garage, I turned to Emily. What are you doing? She stopped beside my car, her eyes shining beneath the amber glow of the streetlights. I'm showing you the parts of yourself you've been too afraid to admit. Then she stepped closer, her body brushing mine, and whispered, and I'm not the only one who wants to see them. I drove home shaking, not from fear, but from the feeling of standing at the edge of something dangerous and knowing, deep down, I wanted to jump. The weekend passed in a haze of temptation and restraint. I didn't see Emily. Not physically, but she was everywhere. In the stillness of my apartment. In the phantom press of her fingers along my thigh. In the mirror, where I caught myself practicing the conversations I didn't know how to start. By Sunday evening, I was restless. Agitated. Like my body knew something was coming before my mind caught up. At 8:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. Emily, come over. No explanation. No emoji. Just the pulse of 3 words I couldn't ignore. I drove across the city like I was chasing something I'd lost. The streets were dark, quiet, but inside, I was burning. When I reached her place, I hesitated at the door. For the first time, I wondered, what if this isn't just about desire anymore? What if this is a turning point? I knocked. She opened the door slowly, and behind her stood Nina. My breath caught. Nina didn't look surprised. She smiled, soft, calm, but not innocent. I was wondering if you'd show, she said. Emily stepped aside. Come in. The apartment was dimly lit, warm. Candles again. Jazz low in the background. A glass of red wine on the table, untouched. The air carried that same scent I'd begun to associate with Emily. Jasmine, warmth, danger. I turned to her. What is this? It's choice, she said. Nothing more. Nothing less. Nina sat on the couch, legs crossed, her gaze steady. No one's asking you to do anything, she said gently. But if you felt what I felt, if this tension hasn't just been in your head, then maybe this is the moment you stop running from it. Emily didn't touch me. She didn't need to. Every nerve in my body was already awake. I could feel their energy, not just separately, but together. The kind of chemistry that made the air itself feel thicker, heavier. I didn't move. Not at first. I stood there, caught between every rule I'd lived by and the one truth I couldn't deny anymore. I wanted this. Not because it was reckless. Not because it was forbidden. But because it was real. The most honest thing I'd felt in years. I walked to the couch. Sat between them. For a long moment, no one said anything. Emily reached for my hand. Nina placed hers gently on my knee. And all I could think was, this isn't about possession, or betrayal, or even lust. This is about being seen. Fully. Unflinchingly. And choosing it anyway. That night didn't explode, it unfolded. Slowly. Quietly. With glances and laughter and long silences that said everything words couldn't. We didn't cross every line. But we traced them with our fingers. With our breath. With the kind of intimacy that comes not from touching bodies, but from touching the truths we hide. By the time I left, the sun was already brushing the skyline. I stood on her doorstep, the morning air cool against skin still warm with memory. Emily stepped beside me. You okay? I looked at her, then at the rising sun. I don't know what I am, I said, but I know I'm not pretending anymore. She smiled. Good. If you've ever been in a moment where everything changed, where desire tangled with truth, drop your story in the comments. And if this confession made you feel something, subscribe. There's more where this came from.